Is this a screenshot from the trailer? I don't think it is, because we can actually see like UI stuff about Clive in here. It looks like your potions are hot mapped to the D-pad, which is very action gamey, you know? And this seems to be your style changes as well as your special attacks on each one of your buttons, your 4 face buttons. This is actually from the trailer. Well, it looks ridiculous. Yoshi P says that one of the main themes in 16 will be the clash of values and ideals, and how the dominants think about the state of the world considering the power they wield. Interesting. There's definitely going to be some backstabbing. Gotcha. Focus so much on their dominance and they have such a large part in the story. You're going to see how they think the world should be and what they think it is right for the world. You're going to focus on these motivations and the struggles, and then you're going to delve even deeper into darker themes when it comes to how people should live. Should people live the life that was chosen for them, or fight to break free from that kind of destiny? Damn. There is no plans to have supplementary material to 16. They are working to make the game as complete as possible. Most shockingly, Clive will go through 3 stages of his life: his teens, his 20s, and his 30s. Wow, okay, cool. That's a large story, right? There's some spoilers? Well, get ready. It will not be open world, instead focused on global scale. Potentially a word closer to Final Fantasy 12 and even Final Fantasy 14 have pulled off. 12 is actually pretty meager, right? It's got like FF11 style zones in many ways. We found through extensive research that many of the younger generations of gamers never played a Final Fantasy or don't have any interest in the series, to create a game that might, oh god, this is so big, excite and resonate not only with core fans but also with new generation. We played a lot of the game ourselves, and yes, in 16 you'll find inspiration from recent AAA open world RPGs. Inspiration, not like, you know, direct copying. To bring a story that feels like it spans an entire globe and beyond, we decided to avoid open world, as that limits us to a single open world space, and instead focusing on an independent area-based game that can give players a better feel of truly global scale. I think I understand what he means. I think once again, the issue with open world comes to like a lot of traveling and stuff like that. That ends up being like a big part of large-ass open world games. And maybe that's not really important. Maybe that's really not what they're looking for. Going from biome to biome, that's more important, instead of just like getting from point A to point B and how much time there is in between. A lot of open world stuff means there's a lot of nothing happening, right? You're just sort of driving to places or taking a chocobo or whatever. If you essentially have to like auto chocobo from point A to point B, then that's not super interesting, you know? It will have party members to accompany Clive, but they will not be playable. They will still, however, fight and talk with him. We didn't want to overwhelm ourselves in the newest trailer, so we focused slowly on Clive. That said, for most of his journey, he'll be accompanied by 1 or more companions. These companions will participate in battle, as they'll be AI-driven, as to allow players to focus slowly on... Wow, okay, so you just get guest characters, right? You just have guest characters, right? They essentially act like Red 13 did at the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake. There's a dog. There's a dog. Confirmed. Let's just say he's more wolf than a dog. His name is Torgal. As for him being a party member, you'll just have to wait and see. Oh. If the dog gets older with you, if the dog ages with you and you have to get dog armor, oh man. Each Eikon battle will feel different. 3D shooting game, pro wrestling match, battlefield. What the hell? Summon fights will be varied and crazy. So this is the game's giant spectacle, right? Instead of summons killing enemies, now summons fight summons. Who's gonna win? It's gonna be, is meant to be unique, and in fact, we don't actually use the same exact system twice. Each battle is completely unique in its playstyle, so we're doing something that's kind of crazy. For example, okay, this might be some spoilery stuff. One Eikon versus Eikon, you have Eikon A versus B. The battle will be reminiscent of a 3D shooter. So like some Nier Automata stuff. Whereas another Eikon versus a different Eikon is more like a pro wrestling match. That will be the one with Titan. And then maybe even a third one, Eikon versus another Eikon, will transform an entire area into a battlefield. And so again, we didn't reuse these systems for each one. These Eikon versus Eikon battles are unique and will change with each battle. That's awesome. Unique gameplay mechanics per kaiju game. cool. Because of that, and because the battles are so different in nature, the UI has to change. And so you will see slight differences in the UI between battles. However, we ended up having to cut a lot of that from the trailer because it ends up being story spoilers. Makes sense, all right? Makes sense. Yoshida says that user research showed that users felt the series was becoming static in their vision, which is why they want to aim for something different and show the series can go in different directions. FF's kind of famous or infamous for being different from each entry. That said, after doing some recent user research, we found that a lot of users were finding that a lot of the recent Final Fantasy games are kind of becoming static in the vision. So we wanted to use this as an opportunity to step back and try something different, not just for us, but thinking for the future and forthcoming projects. I mean, yeah, it's like FF7 has been like franchised practically out of Final Fantasy and is like its own thing. So that's cool. I mean, I think that if there's one person you want to trust with like the vision of Final Fantasy this point forward, it's going to be Yoshida, you know? I think the fact that like 13 does feel different from 15, you know? That does feel different from 12. But at the same time, those games had such giant scapes of time in between them that it's crazy, man. Final Fantasy 12 took forever to come out. Final Fantasy 13 then took forever to come out. And then Final Fantasy 15 took forever to come out. And now, at least it feels like Final Fantasy 16 is not that far from 15. It feels like 15 wasn't that long ago, right? Granted, 13 and 14, yeah, well, 13 and 14 being in the same year. Is it really going to be 7 years in between FF15 to... I guess so, right? I guess these games just take forever to come out. So by the time this comes out in 2023, yeah, it came out in 2016. You're right. Holy crap, dude. Jeez, that's crazy to think. I was thinking it was technically 2014. That's crazy, right? That it might actually have been late 2014, early 2015 when we were playing the demos. Remember like the first playable demo of FF15 was a hell of a long time ago. So a new trailer focusing on the world and the storyline this fall. That's absolutely going to be TGS, I'm calling it. I don't think that's Gamescom. I think that's going to be Tokyo Game Show. Well, we just released our second trailer. We're currently already working on the third trailer for release, and that trailer we hope to concentrate a bit more on the world. Yeah, because like the weird thing about the current trailers for the game is that there's just like a bunch of random dialogue and random scenes that don't really make any sense. I want a trailer that focuses like exclusively on some gameplay thing, you know? Like focus on like an Eikon fight, focus on Clive action battles. Or I want to see what this thing. I don't know if I'm looking for story stuff. I just want to see what the game like kind of is. It's going to focus on the world, the lore, and the storyline, and hopefully bring a bit more of that information to players. Showing what the story is going to be like, where the narrative is going. Okay, that's good, because right now, the current trailers are just like random dialogues and scenes where it's just like, what? Like, none of this really feels like it's related to the last thing that was said, and is moving to the next thing? I'm like, what? Clive will have a trusted buddy in 16, potentially the dog. Fighting won't be solo. Contrary to how it appears in the trailer, the main character will be accompanied by several AI party members, which we talked about, similar to past Final Fantasy games. Yoshida also teases that there will be a faithful buddy that Clive can give specific commands to during combat. You absolutely get a dog. The game has a dog, Jessica. Yoshi P is saying that the Kingdom Hearts team has contributed to the real-time combat and boss battles of FF16. He also confirms again that the DMC5 director and Dragon's Dogma designer is involved as a combat director. He believes that Square Enix, with titles like FF15 and Remake, and the Kingdom Hearts series under its belt, they finally have the expertise to create a compelling action combat system that players, regardless of their familiarity with the series, will enjoy. Well, that seems to have been the goal for Square for what feels like 15 years now. Well, that makes a lot of sense why we get like a hyper action mainline, not like spin-off, you know, sort of remake or something like that. No, like this is the Final Fantasy 16 is going to be even more combat action focused than even FF15, and that had at least a decent amount, but the combat was always relatively wonky in 15. It was cool, I enjoyed it. It was clear that it was like a thrown together project from a lot of different things, and after FF15 they definitely figured a lot of stuff out. You're gonna have a skill tree to unlock further abilities. For each icon he unlocks, you will also be able to respec and find the build that... Ooh, whoa. After claiming an icon's power, Clive is able to unlock their abilities in an ability tree, and then will earn points with regular battles that can use those points to unlock regular abilities. We want players to be able to use the system to customize their character to find their own playstyle, to use these points to purchase abilities that they want to use or power up and they really enjoy using. That said, we also want players to be able to decide on something that really fits them, and rather than having those points and decisions be final, we're going to allow players the opportunity to refund those points at any time and as many times as they want so they can experiment with different builds. This sounds crazy. This sounds like everyone's playthrough hopefully could be different, you know? It sounds awesome is what it is. It really depends on how many abilities there are. I mean, hell, it's one of the things that I think makes the original Final Fantasy VII still enjoyable to this day. Like, figuring out what to do with your materia and who to put it on is some of the most fun there is. And everybody will have a different technical, like, loadout. It's kind of like materia, yeah. But really, that's great, you know? That's great. That could lead to some crazy, like, emergent optimal stuff where people, like, have some nutty gameplay mechanic that collides with some other nutty gameplay mechanic, you know? That could be super cool. I'm crazy down for that, man. I think they also want to give people a lot of replayability and stuff like that, not just play through an RPG again, which can be a little, depending on the game, can sometimes be a slog. Yeah, by giving the player way more stuff to do, that sounds awesome. All right, that sounds really damn cool. Clive will need to fight Eikons in both his human and Eikon form. Not sure if you're only Ifrit or you can also fight as others. These massive scale battles and the changing of their scales from small to large will play out in real time, connecting the action, the cutscenes, and the dialogue and story all together seamlessly without any loading times, creating this exciting roller coaster type of ride. And this is where potentially next gen stuff starts kicking in, right? This crazy, like, ambitious fight starts off as like a normal human fight on the ground and then naturally transitions into you turning into this ridiculous kaiju-sized monster. Yes, that sounds ridiculously cool. It sounds like they're very action game focused, and they're trying to, like, push everything to the biggest regard. In the past, there existed a super over technological sky civilization. There was a great war, and the sky civilization collapsed. Its ruins remain in many places. Alligans, well, I mean, chat, like, right, if we want to talk about warring sky civilizations and stuff, no, it's not from Chrono Trigger. No, it's not from this. It's not from that. It's not from the billion different things that have sky civilizations. That's all from Castle in the Sky Laputa. That's all from Castle in the Sky. That's where it all comes from. It all stems directly from Laputa, right? The old Miyazaki movie from the mid-80s, 1985. Like, it is... Once again, almost every JRPG big one has just got that kind of stuff in it. I'm not surprised. The Simmons must be freaking out right now. That's like his favorite movie. La Puta? Clive will go through 3 stages in his life, which will follow a thorny path to the end of his life. They will share more about this character in the future. Jeez! Jeez! AI-controlled characters, we already figured that out. One of the themes of the game is bonds between people. You'll have a buddy that participate with Clive in battle. Go, directions are full auto? Okay. Most likely his dog, yeah. Audrey said that's a mistranslation. Okay, good. Soken came up with the idea of having a choir singing the names of the summons. Good idea, right? That's a good idea. In FFXVI, you will have a hunt system. Hideouts, strong monsters, side quests, and simple crafting to build weapons and items you can explore or beeline through the story. Ooh. It's not an open world, but there's about 4 fields of its own. There are also side activities, taking tickets for mob hunts on the bulletin board, which is just like FF12 stuff. Exploring the fields in search of powerful enemies to defeat and playing up side quests scattered throughout the fields. There is also a simple crafting concept that allows you to create your own weapons and other items so you can play while you're killing them, or you can play in a straight line and go to the ending if you want. Wow. Great. Right? FF14 as well, obviously, but like FF12 was the first one to do that with hunts, and it was sort of based on the notorious monsters that were in Final Fantasy XI, because there was obviously a lot of FF11 and FF12. Cool. The game will have story focus mode for those who are not good at action games. They will give accessories to help you, such slowing time before enemy attacks. Oh, okay. So there'll be a lot of, like, assistance stuff so that you do not have to... A lot of, what's it called? A lot of accessibility options. That's great. That's completely fine. As long as there's an extremely hard mode, right? As long as there is, like, for action game purists, right? Just give us, like, the thick dank. Like, oh, God. Give us, like, Dark Souls mode. Or add modes to the game that only unlock upon defeating it the first time. And then you can go back in. Oh, God, it says it right here. It will have a hard difficulty mode after you beat... Well, shit. This is a ridiculous amount of information to go on. And it's really hard to, like, gather everything. But the fact that there is already such a focus on your character and character action and doing stuff in the world, it feels like the game has been genuinely figured out. And in fact, I would be long to mention or bet that they probably have figured a lot of this out by now, which is why they're just dropping so much information in interview. Oh, in the PS Blog interview, he says the game's complete. They're just polishing now. It's just playable from beginning to end. Well, there you go. You know, we heard about that a little while ago. It's just that it's weird that the game is still a year away. They're adding voices for different languages. Well, that's probably one of the things that we're getting as a result of the game not coming out for a year, you know? If the game isn't coming out for a year, a multilingual, like, translation and localization is a thing that can take a very long time, and is probably one of the biggest elements that is going into a lot of that polish, too. Think we'll get a demo? I think we'll get a demo eventually. Closer to release, but we'll get a demo.